So I did it, y'all. I didn't finish both of the careers that I wanted to for the OWL Readathon, but I did finish ministry worker, so I'm officially a ministry worker. It's fine. We're fine. Hey everyone, it's Emily, and I wanted to chat about the books that I was able to read in the month of May. This is a pretty belated wrap up, but again, it's been crazy. I've been traveling a lot in June, so this is the first chance I have to sit down and chat about the books I read in May. There were so many good ones. If you saw my TBR, I'm doing, or was doing, the Harry Potter, the OWL Read-Along, and it was so much fun. It was great. I'm excited for the Newts later on this year, so without further ado, let's chat about the books I was able to read. So, as I mentioned, I was working for ministry worker, was the main career that I was working for, and figured that I could get a bonus career of magical zoologist if I was able to get through a ton of books. I almost got there. I was so close. I was like half a book away from getting there, like probably 150, 200 pages away from that. But, you know, still did really well. So, for ministry worker, I did Charms, Defense Against the Dark Arts, History of Magic, Potions, and Transfiguration. So, in that order, I will go over the ones that I read. So, this was my Charms book that was, the prompt was to read in adult work. So, I read The Martian by Andy Weir. This was amazing. It was hilarious. As I mentioned, I saw the movie a while ago, and this was even better than the movie, as per usual. It was just so funny, so well written. The main character is an astronaut named Mark Watney, and he is just so snarky and so hilarious. And it's definitely a character that's going to stick with me for a really, really long time. And just, I love his journal entries as he's on Mars trying to get back to Earth, and just the way he kind of solves problems and can just take a step back and go, okay, let's not panic. Well, panic first for just a moment, and then let's think about how we can solve this problem one step at a time. And it was kind of cool too because Andy Weir, and it was kind of interesting, there was a discussion at the back that kind of goes over some frequently asked questions. I believe this was actually originally published bit by bit online, and then actually published as a full novel. And you can just tell the care that he took to write, and how much he actually researched, and how much he was able to figure out the math of what Mark Watney would have had to figure out. And the problems that arose just seemed like very natural things, or very reasonable possible things that could have occurred if someone actually needed to get back from Mars after being stranded there. So it was just super interesting. It was funny. It was entertaining. Defense Against the Dark Arts prompt was to read a book with an R to start the title. And so I did Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is another one. I was just on a sci-fi roll this past month in May, and this one surprised me in a really good way. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I only kind of sort of had an idea of what the plot was from the very small blurb in the back. And so this one, I wasn't really sure what to expect when I was going in. I actually listened to this one on audio, which was amazing because Will Wheaton narrates it, king of the nerds himself. And the reason that was really funny was because this book heavily deals with 80s pop culture, including specifically mentioning Will Wheaton, and not just Star Trek, but specifically mentioning Will Wheaton in this story. Anyway, so it follows a kid named Wade, and he is living in, I think it's 2044, yeah, 2044, and society has kind of gone to shit, and people are just trying to survive the best they can, but there's a virtual world that kind of becomes Wade's escape. And when the creator, the rich creator of this virtual world, dies, he leaves his fortune to the person who can find this egg. Halliday's egg is what it's called. Halliday's the creator of this virtual world. He leaves his fortune to the person who can find his egg buried in this virtual world. So in order to find the egg and actually understand the clues that he leaves, you need to have Halliday's obsession with 80s pop culture, or at least have as deep an understanding about 80s pop culture as he does, and know the movies that he liked, the music that he liked, the games that he played, everything, in order to understand the clues that will lead you to the egg. And so Wade is trying to get this egg along with a bunch of other people. So it's his adventures trying to find this egg, and just him getting deeper and deeper into this virtual world and how that relates to his life outside of this virtual world. And it was fascinating. It was so fascinating. I honestly was just riveted. It literally was. I was so sucked in. I was listening to this mostly, as I said, on audio to and from work on my commute. And I was so sucked in that sometimes it was literally jarring to turn off the audiobook when I got to work and actually start working. I had to take a moment to realize that I was not in this world, that I was actually at work, and that I needed to do other things. I could definitely tell and understand some criticisms of this book. I can definitely see them. You could definitely tell that it was written by a white dude almost a decade ago. So they're not a perfect book by any means, but it was just so entertaining that enjoyment level was just through the roof, 5 out of 5. So there's some other things about this book that might knock it down a little bit, and some deeper conversations that can be had about how Wade relates to other characters and the way some other characters kind of serve the plot throughout the story. Anyway, some criticisms to be had, but it was very entertaining, and I love the audiobook, so if you can listen to it on audio, highly recommend. For History of Magic, the prompt was to read a book published at least 10 years ago. I read The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, and this also was incredible. I wasn't sure, again, what to expect from this one, but it's just it's super short. I think the audiobook, even at regular speed, was less than 2 hours. It's, very small book, and it's just little vignettes of the life of Esperanza. And she lives, I think she's in Chicago, right? Yeah. She's in a Latinx section of Chicago, and it's just about her life and how she, it's a story about friends, it's a story about family, it's a story about her trying to belong and feeling like she belongs in her community and trying to struggle to get there, just growing up as a Latina woman and, struggles with that. It's just a very sweet, at times, just heartbreaking coming of age story that's told through little vignettes, and it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. I can definitely see myself rereading this in a section where she kind of describes why she wrote this book. You can definitely see how passionate she was in her writing when she was writing this book, and I think she wrote it when she was pretty young. I think she was in her early 20s when she wrote it, and she basically wrote it because she didn't see anything that showed family dynamics that she experienced or showed, the lives of the people around her. She didn't see that represented in any stories, and so she wrote it, and I just think that's really cool. The next prompt was potions, and that was to read a sequel, and for this one I read A Scorch Against the Night by Saba Tahir. So this is the second book in the Ember and the Ashes series, and in Ember and the Ashes follows Laya and Elias as our two main characters. Laya is a scholar, Elias is a soldier in the Imperial Army, and his mother runs a military school for the Empire, and Laya's brother has been captured by Empire soldiers, and she is trying to break him out of prison, and she turns to the rebel resistance for help, and she basically kind of goes undercover in this military academy and runs across Elias, and it's their story and her trying to get her brother out of jail. So this is the continuation of that story, so I can't really describe what's going on in this one, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought this was a great continuation of this series. I honestly didn't think this struggled too much with middle book syndrome. I know the third one is out. I have it behind me, and hopefully we'll be reading it soon. The fourth one I think is going to be published next year. But I really thought this was just a fun, just engaging continuation of this series. Yeah, I haven't really been giving star ratings consistently here. Yeah. Like, I don't necessarily, it's kind of hard to describe why. Like, I don't necessarily think this will be, you know, my favorite all-time fantasy series. But this is a solid one, though. This is just very solid. Fun, fast pace. I really love the main characters. Like, I do really connect with Laia and love her dynamic with Elias, so... Anyway, so for Transfiguration, the prompt was to read a book with sprayed edges or red on the cover or with a red cover. The closest I could come. I had actually started this a little bit before, but I did finish Days of Blood and Starlight. This was also for a YouTube read-along. And this is also the second in a series following Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. And it follows a young woman in Prague who is an art student but also was raised by these animal demon creatures, and they're at war with angels, like a group of angels, and it's her trying to figure out who she is. Like, she doesn't really know why she was raised by these creatures or why, you know, she runs errands for them. She doesn't really know kind of what these creatures do or, you know, why they're at war or what's going on. So this is a continuation of her trying to figure out her place in this world and kind of her place entangled between angels and demons and our world, and it's really interesting. I liked the pacing in this book. I really love Karou, the main character. I think the best part about this was Karou's friend and her boyfriend, her friend's boyfriend. Their dynamic is incredible. I'm excited to read the short story or the novella that is with this series that follows those two characters, because they are thoroughly entertaining. But I do love Karou. She's super spunky and a lot of fun to follow, and it's just a super unique world. And so, yeah, this was really enjoyable. So I think this is another one that, although it is thoroughly enjoyable, you know, I honestly could see myself rereading it. There's just something about it where I also don't know with this one if this will be, you know, a favorite fantasy series of all time once I kind of read more fantasy series. But it is just super unique and interesting and has a lot of interesting things to say about human nature. And there's so many great quotes and so many great characters and just a lot of great dynamics going on in this story. So also, I think I gave the first one a 4 out of 5, and I think I would probably give the same to this one. It's still just really solid. And I love her writing style so much. And so that was everything that I needed for the ministry career. I also was trying to shoot for magical zoologist, and the things I needed for that one included herbology and care of magical creatures. So a conspiracy of stars could count for either astronomy, since it's got star in the title, or these are plants based in this world. I'm convinced kind of looks like plants, counting them as plants. And so yeah, so I'm counting this with herbology, and this was going to be my Care of Magical Creatures book, but this is the one that I got halfway through by the end of the month. I've since finished it, but I did not finish it before the end of the month. So I'll half count it, and I am almost a magical zoologist. So, but yes, this is A Conspiracy of Stars by Olivia A. Cole. Yeah, so this one was also a lot of fun. So this follows Octavia, and she is on another world, and I think it's a couple of generations removed from them needing to emergency land on this other world, and they have been in touch with a species that's on this world and kind of have a designated area that they've kind of been allowed to stay and research and kind of get to know the world a little bit and have an area where they can live. And so it's largely a society of scientists, and Octavia's parents are scientists. She wants to be a scientist. They allow 16-year-olds to start internships, and so she and her peers are starting internships. And but the more and more she finds out about this world, the more she realizes that the adults in this world either are deceiving people or have been deceived, and she's trying to figure out, she sees some weird things going on, and she's trying to figure out how to rectify that with what she's being told by the adults in this world. And so she and some of her peers need to kind of figure out what's going on and figure out why the uneasy peace that they've had with this other species on this planet is kind of falling apart, and why that's happening, what they need to do about it, and how they can basically maintain that peace. And I didn't realize this is actually the first in what's going to be a series, so that was an unexpected but fun surprise. So overall, it was enjoyable, not anything mind-blowing. The writing was relatively simplistic. I think it was written for a slightly younger audience than myself. So, I mean, it still flew through it relatively quickly. I love stories that involve humans interacting and meeting other species and trying to maintain relationships with other species and trying to understand new worlds. I love those kinds of stories, which is why I'm drawing science fiction in the first place. But yeah, this was fun. I think I still would read the next book in the series. I think I'm still intrigued in the politics of this world. I'm intrigued about how I love the friendships in this world, or the friendship between our three main characters. I really love that. There was also, though, I think, aside from the writing style being slightly simplistic from what I was anticipating, I think there was also some romance thrown in there that just was not necessary. I don't think it added anything to the story. I think the three main characters could have just been friends and done the same thing. I think it just kind of was thrown in there. So that was a little bit weird, and I didn't really feel that dynamic coming out organically. I didn't really just feel like it moved the plot forward. Whatever. Like, it didn't bother me. It just didn't seem necessary or fleshed out very well. But I did love the three main characters as friends. I think this was published relatively recently, so I imagine the sequel won't be out for a little bit. So, overall, probably like 3.5 stars. Solid, fun, entertaining. A few things I didn't like about it, but yeah. So those were the books I read this month. Overall, a solid reading month. There were some good ones that are really, really going to stick with me for sure. A couple of continuation of fantasy series, some sci-fis that have gone way up on my list of favorite books. So yeah. So let me know what you read in the month of May below, and did you enjoy what you read in May? Have you read any of these books, and what did you think of them? Let me know below, and be sure to subscribe. I'll also link my Twitter and my Instagram, so be sure to follow me there, because that's where I like to hang out. And until the next one, bye.